All right, everybody, welcome. Thanks for having me. It's an absolute honor to talk to you and about the topics of training and conditioning, including with restoration, with all the different aspects that have kind of the trainer's mindset and how we can view and open up the practice of training, especially for not just the basics of fitness, but for the kind of the Pandora's box of fitness. There's so much out there, and we're really going to dive into a particular topic today. And if you haven't heard me before, if you're first time watching this series, my name is Michael Hughes. History of Gymnazo is basically started back in 2010, and we blended fitness and restoration together at the same time. Through this journey that I grew up with, I always wanted to be a physical therapist. Just didn't have the kind of the standardized testing chops, as I would like to call it, but didn't give up on my dream. Found an alternative physical therapy type of school education, and I incorporated that knowledge into the fitness side of things. And as I was working at a big box gym, doing that there, and it built the availability to have the clientele to take it to where it is now. So I see myself more as a movement therapist than actually as a personal trainer, but I still love to do everything beyond that. So with a staff of 12, a program that now coaches coaches, and that's being probably the best part of my entire job now. I really enjoy sharing this content because with me, if I didn't get shared this content, then I wouldn't be in the career, the happiness, and the results that we're getting now. So my job is to give it all to you. Before we get into this week's topic, is there any questions from the previous week's topic? So just kind of a little rundown, how to evaluate a movement assessment as the first one. Any questions there? Or how to solve for musculoskeletal dysfunction, or the 4 different personality styles, or making a 5-star customer or client experience. So if there's anyone's there, let me know, whether it be in the chat or unmute yourself. I'd be happy to address them before we go on further. All right, no big deal. Yes, they are on our Discord. They will only be up there for a few days, but don't worry. I know something that's you don't know that we'll be posting them later on. So just something to be watching out for. Okay, this is what we have set up for us here. We are going to talk a little bit about the mindset that we all have into what does sustainability mean? What does it mean in the fitness industry? And how can programming be the best place to start in keeping a client for life? I mean, truly, through all the stages that they go through. If we get a high schooler, obviously they may be leaving for college one day. But if we get someone in their 30s, how can we train them to be in their 40s, in their 50s, and 60s, all the way to their 80s? The oldest client we have right now is in their 80s, and no joke, I'm not messing with you, this client still buys a yearly snowboarding pass up in the mountains in California. And he comes to us about a few months before the season. In fact, we're in his training now saying, hey, get me ready for the snowboarding season. And I love it, and I absolutely love it. So sustainable, I want to define that. To us, sustainable means rarely pushing to 100% max effort for an entire workout. Is avoid getting our clients so sore that they can't work out later that week. We reserve those AMRAP days, or as many rounds as possible. Those workouts are we hold them special. We don't subscribe to the notion of no pain, no gain in anything. And we really do not follow that pain is weakness leaving the body. How we really think about sustainability is the same way that you think about your car's tires. And if you own a car, you should probably rotate your car's tires, or at least tell your friends to rotate their car's tires, because the body of the car is not perfectly weight distributed throughout all 4 wheels. There's a little bit different stressors on the turning wheels, a little bit different stressors on the propelling wheels, or if they're front or back. There's a little more weight on the back corner, etc., the front corner, and it wears those tires appropriately to where the weight or the use distribution is. So it's really interesting. If we don't focus on maximizing the longevity of our tires, then we're going to not have them that long, right? The same thing with our joints, right? Now, can we replace a joint? Absolutely. But is it the same joint? Not even close. Does it have the same life? or shelf life, not even close. So it's important that when we're in the training, we don't do the same movements or the same things too repetitively too often. It increases wear and tear. Body hates ad nauseum repetition. It hates it. If you really want to break down something in the human body, if you really want to injure somebody, do the same thing over and over again and over again. That's it. Real simple. You'll break down some serious years of a tissue or a joint very fast. The body needs variety with consistency, though, right? Variety with consistency, and consistency needs progression. So it's really cool. Like, it's okay to do a lot of things, but do a lot of things often enough that you can show that progression of movement. So it's really important. Don't train for randomness, because that builds random results. You got to build for randomness with consistency, so it's not that random, and then progress it all the way through. So if we need to get through this, right, how do we have restoration, and what is it, and why is it important? So restoration is essentially the biological and physical concept that allows sustainability. So we can say the word therapeutics, right? Restoration and therapeutics is kind of the same thing. Is it physical therapy? Well, it could be physical therapy. Does it have to be done by physical therapists or chiropractors or massage therapists? No way. No way. As a trainer, we should have the knowledge, the ability. Our tool belt should be big enough to say, I can apply some therapeutics. Do I have to call myself a physical therapist? No, absolutely not. Do you have to get a six-figure loan and 3 years of schooling or 2 years of schooling to have that knowledge? No way, not even close. You can go to the public library and figure it out. The hard part is putting it all together into a package, right? So restoration to us is the ability to take tissue, right? Connective tissue, fascia, joint tissue, muscle tissue, ligaments, tendons, the whole thing, even skin, and making sure that it gets rinsed. Make sure that it doesn't just get beat up and get strengthened over and over again, because with strength becomes tightness, right? That's just the way it goes. When you get stronger, your body automatically gets tighter. You have to go back and kind of pull those pieces apart again, so you have the resiliency of that strength versus just the kind of this kind of feel load through, right? You look at a gymnast, right? Gymnastics at the highest level. They have amazing strength with amazing flexibility. That's the real cool thing of what we're looking for. Now, do we need that high level of training? Absolutely not. But we need the restorative process or the restorative capacity to be able to continue to build strength without limiting our availability of range of motion. So how does restoration promote sustainability, right? It's making that loop, right? It's making that loop, and it's a proactive effort. You work out hard, you need to recover hard. Yeah. You work out for, let's say, a lot of kind of jumping and ballisticness, you better take care of those tissues that applied that force. And the human body really loves the word force. In fact, the muscle tissue of the human body only can read one language. Right? I'm sure there's a few of you out there that can speak multiple languages. Well, the muscle can only really speak or listen to one language, and that's the language of force. Well, what does force mean? Well, it's acceleration times mass. Okay, that equals force. So what's acceleration? Well, let's just call that cardio day, right? It's just a simple put. What is mass? So let's just call that strength day, right? So if I put more mass, I get more force. If I put more acceleration, I get more force. Okay, so that's good, but those are all kind of performance ways of thinking about it. What's the restorative side of that thing? Well, if you're a soft tissue therapist or have any soft tissue skill, you know that your hand pressure, your elbow pressure, a foam roller per se, a percussion gun is also force. It's also force. Stretching out the hamstring is also force, but it's an eccentric force versus a concentric force. Right? There's two ways to look at this, right? There's two sides to this street. So we need to put as much cardio strength, force of shortening, as we do as the elongation, the elasticity side of things. Me putting an elbow into someone's quad is force in a separation way versus in a come together way. So think about it like that. That's why we want to build as much restoration into our programming, so we can promote the body's availability to continue that productive loop cycle of spinning up, 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 more strength, more cardio, more range of motion, versus the downward cycle, more strength, more cardio, less range of motion. Eventually that joint's going to find its peak of limit. And then if you push beyond that peak, well, that's where connective tissue starts to get ruptured. That's where joints get started worn out of alignment, and that's the whole car tire analogy. Right on. Okay, hope that's kind of a little intro, a way to thinking about things. Okay, but how can us trainers make our programming more sustainable? Well, there's a few different ways to do that, and I'm going to try to give you a lot of examples of what we actually do. The first thing that we do is we look at movement in 3 dimensions. Probably no surprise to you that I said that. We look at movement as not just overhead, not just up and down, not just forward and back. Right, those are very, very linear, very what we call sagittal plane, very lens of way of looking at things. We look at things in the frontal plane and also the transverse plane. That doesn't mean that we just matricize or put everything in 3D and just say, oh, just do everything 3D and you'll be fine. No, that's the far end of the spectrum of extreme that we don't want to go to either. We want to understand when should a joint do that, why should a joint do that, and how to progress a joint to have the potential capacity to do those things. Should I allow my knee to get a lot more flexion and extension? Sure. Should I allow my knee to get a little bit more valgus and varus? Sure. Should I get my knee to torque counter rotation? No, no way. Don't even try to do that. But should we get more in sync rotation? Definitely. Definitely. So there's, again, we can't just 3D everything and expect great results. We have to understand which joints love it more or hate it more, depending on which plane of motion. But here's a way to think about it from a fitness standpoint, right? For something simple. Let's say I got a Viper here, and it's very obvious. I'm going to go kneeling for this one, just so you can make sure you can see it. Here's an overhead press, right? A military press, right? Some sort of just easy drill, very, very up and down. So how do you 3D that? Well, it's just a simple press. I'm not really talking about as a joint. I'm talking about a series of joints: scapula, shoulder, elbow, wrist, etc. Even if the thoracic spine and the cervical spine are all in play. In fact, even my pelvis comes forward as I press. So how do you 3D that? Well, instead of just going perfectly vertical, I'll just do a sideways split. Instead of just doing perfectly vertical, what if I go a little bit more anterior? Now, where is there more stress on my body? Well, the weight's in front of me, so the stress is more posteriorly, right? My posterior chain is holding on tighter. How often do you do this motion in life? Every time you're in your kitchen. Every time you're in your kitchen, without a question. Okay, that's anterior. What about posterior? Boom, behind us. Now, where's the stress? Well, the front part of my core. Nice, yeah, the front part of my core is holding on now. So I'm resisting the load to go backwards. So actually, I feel this in my core. This is a great core drill now. Is that bad for my shoulder? It could be if you don't have the shoulder range of motion, right? So I'm not saying that's a good drill for everyone to do, but it's a good one to progress to. How often do I reach behind me? Well, not as often. No questions asked. But do you want the flexibility to reach way back here to throw a ball? Or to reach behind you, maybe even scratch the back of your shoulders, or to put on clothing, right? What about frontal plane? Well, if I do that press vertical, can I go right lateral, left lateral? Right? Did my shoulder really go through a different plane of motion? A little bit, a little deviation here and there, but it was really my trunk and my thoracic spine that took it. But were the forces different? Absolutely. More shearing force that way, more shearing force that way. Shoulders felt that force change, because it's not just mass and acceleration, but it's also direction too. And then what about rotation? Turn and turn. So I had one shoulder joint get much more, in a sense, just keep it simple, spinning one way, or one shoulder joint spinning the opposite way. Bad motions for the shoulder? Shouldn't be. Could be for one person who doesn't have the range of motion through their pec or their subscapular, right, etc. So we have to watch. Just because we say 3D doesn't mean you should just dump it on everybody, but we should definitely allow the joint to have access to it in most cases. So that's the way to kind of think about how do you make your programming more sustainable. Well, you rotate the shoulders tires. You don't just always train it in the same path over and over again, because that joint tendon ligament zone continues to wear in the same way. It's really crazy. If I pull my shirt like this, boom, boom, straight, straight, the tension line, you can see the tension line, it's always vertical. But if I change that tension line, I change which fibers are getting most of the stress or sharing that stress. That's really all we're talking about. Don't constantly do the same thing over and over again. Here's my last way of thinking about it, and I'll move on, not to keep killing it in a sense, but if you take your knuckle and knock the same part of your head over and over and over and over again, probably only gonna take a few knocks before that one spot gets sore. But if you take your knuckle and hit a different spot on your head the entire time, what one spot is gonna get worn or tired? It's gonna last a lot longer. Same motion, same activity, same exercise, just different places of stress. So that's how we think about it. We can also think about a well-balanced workout also means kind of no more arm day, no more leg day. Maybe stepping on some toes with that one, I'm sorry. No more one-size-fits-all group programming. I don't care who you are, you do this one group program. That's a harder one to stomach. That's a harder one to change. Okay, but there's ways to do it, and we do it every single day. We do it every single day. We do not offer one-size small group programming. These things are kind of antiquated ways of thinking. They're not bad, but they're old. There's more. There's better tech out there. So our programming needs to be functional to everyday life without overtraining certain muscle groups or movement patterns. Now, that is for the functional trainer out there. If you're a baseball coach or a baseball conditioning coach, yes, it needs to look like baseball. I get that. But our job is to be the specialist of specialties, so I can train that baseball player, but not overtrain their swing pattern, right? So when they finally get to season, they start wearing out through their front hip because they put so much pressure on it. So just ways to think about it more and more and more. We got to keep our body alive for a long time. My real quick comment about professional athletes out there. The professional athlete world is not a sustainable training world. It's not designed to do that. So we can look at these professional athletes on the way that they're training. Yes, that is not sustainable. They do not play that sport at that level for more than a few years, especially football. It's like a 3-year cycle life. Baseball's longer, golf is longer because the stress is not so hard. But it's really important. We got to think about professional sports is not what we should look to in terms of sustainable programming. They beat themselves up for a paycheck and then they stop. Or they also train in seasons. And there's a few months or definitely a few weeks out of every year, they don't do anything. As us trainers, we're training people through literally 365 days a year, we have the opportunity to train someone. There's no off-season in fitness, so we have to create that pattern of sustainability. So just something I want to make a point on. When we're programming and when you're programming, I want you to think about programming in a much more broader lens. I want to open our box to thinking to the different processes that we analyze in programming. And we want to think of our programming to be balanced, or at least have the opportunity to be balanced. And we also meet a lot of intentions. Like, what is your program's intention? For us, to keep it simple, we think about strength day or cardio day. Most clients grasp those two concepts. We don't use the word Metcon, we don't use the word Tabata and all these things like that. I'm not saying those are bad words, but we just keep it simple. If you want to do more of a strength focused or more of a cardiovascular focused. We always do full body workouts. Always. Because last time I checked, I walked through the doors of my studio here using my full body. I picked up my little sweet 2-year-old boy with my full body. I drove my car with my full body. Certain focuses are there, right? So if that's how our body needs to be used, then that's how I should use or train my body. So that's the way that we think about it. But there's 12 different strategies that we focus on in programming. If you're going to be writing some stuff down right now, this is the time you need to be writing some stuff down. The first category that we look at in terms of programming are what are our physiological strategies? What is the intent of the workout? Global 5,000 view looking down. Okay, is it power? Are we focused on agility? What about coordination? I'm not going to list them all out there, but these are just examples. What's the intent of this workout? Could it be power and coordination? Of course it could be, but it's going to be a little less power, a little less coordination, right? You're going to have to share because you only have so many drills and so much time. Okay, So that's kind of the 5,000 foot view. Let's get down into the nitty gritty a little bit more. What about what positions I'm going to be in, right? I did one position, it was kneeling, but I was only one knee down. Okay, I could be upright, right? I could be prone, I could be supine, I could be sideline, I could be hanging, right? You got to think, what positions do I want to put that athlete in to give them the best that they can have or the intention of your workout? Okay. What about the driver? Now, we use this word driver a lot. Now, driver is essentially what creates the movement pattern. On the overhead press, my driver was my hands, or it was the Viper, right? That was my intent of movement. But I could also do that same overhead press, but my driver could be my knee. I drive my knee forward. That's the first action. And then I use the momentum from my pelvis extension, thoracic spine extension, to drive the weight overhead. So my driver's my knee, then my hands. It makes the press a lot easier. Okay, I could also use my driver as the foot. Instead of the knee drive, my footsteps first. It's the sequencing of the movement, right? The sequencing of a movement really changes. If you train any golfers, you know the sequencing is critical. Any person in any skill sport, the sequence is critical. So can you change the sequence of any action or any drill? Absolutely. Does that change the program? Absolutely. So think about driver as one is, what do you want to change? What do you want to change? Then we're going to the basic ones, right? But this is very important. This is kind of the three-dimensional space of it, right? What motion direction do you want to go? Lateral, rotational, anterior, posterior, right? Kind of what I showed with the overhead press. The next one would be motion height. Gosh, motion height, like, yeah, do you want to do a jump at a initial range of motion in a sense? Excuse me, a height of a small box, a big box? Do you want that motion height maybe to be a reach at knee height or at chest height? Do you want to do a dumbbell press at overhead, or do you want to do a dumbbell press at chest? Do you want to do a dumbbell press down at foot? Changes the entire muscle group that I've been working, but it's the same drill, the same weight. And then I want to think about motion distance, right? And I kind of alluded to it. Do you want a initial range of motion step? Do you want a mid-range of motion step? Do you want an end range of motion step? Same drill, just change it 3 different ways, all 3 different stressors through the body. So I just named 6 different things that we can talk about to change the programming for more sustainable or more intention focused. There's 6 more. What body areas do you want to work on? Do you want to work on upper body more? Maybe a lower body more? This is where you can kind of focus more on arms, legs, but I can do a drill that's much more leg focused in that drill, and then go to a drill that's much more arm focused to kind of counterbalance one. This is one that's much more simple for us to understand because we do it often. But do I want to do a full body one to allow that motion to happen? So just ways to think about it. Then you think about the actions. What actions do I want to do? Well, there's a lot of actions. We have 8 fundamental actions, right? Locomotion could be one of them. A shuffle pattern. A lift could be another one, right? Push-pull, all those different ones. And then we go, the ones that we think about the most often. Rate. How fast or how slow do you want that motion to be? The duration. Do you want to do it more for time? Do you want to do it more for reps? It changes how the program could be taken on. The movement demand. Should it be a very complicated drill, followed by a complicated drill, followed by a complicated drill, followed by another complicated drill? Is your group training really going to memorize all those complicated drills, or are they simple drills? We like to pair them up. Complicated then simple, or simple then complicated, and then complicated. So we don't overwhelm our group or our training session to be like, gosh, man, I'm just like in a brain fog. You give me like 6 different things to cause me 1 rep, or it's just too simple. It's just a bunch of squats. Give me something more. I want to make it more fun. And then our last one is our movement spectrum. Is it integrated to the body and how it works, or is it isolated in how the body works? So I don't mean isolated like an isolated bicep curl, right? So here is a squat that is very integrated to the rest of the system. But here's an isolated squat that's very focused on one part. And here's a more isolated squat that's focused on just the posterior hip. All I did is change my mechanics to say this is a huge posterior chain squat because of how my body's positioned. So that would be more isolated, but still functional. Foot still in contact with the ground. I wasn't moving an artificial force that doesn't have any relevance to how my body actually works in real life, versus integrated all the way on 2 feet. So a lot to chew on there, a lot to chew on. We actually have an algorithm that in our MDMC course we give you that you can literally track all those 12 things and see where your workout lands. And it's pretty cool because it shows you like, oh, geez, I didn't realize all my stuff was initial range of motion, simple, and all in the upright stance. Gosh, I didn't even think about that. So it allows you to kind of get some feedback quickly to see if your workout is balanced, right? Sometimes you don't want a balanced workout. You really want to focus in on one zone. That's totally fine, but you have the awareness to see that. So a cool little tool that the MDMC course provides. I'll talk about that later. Okay, think about all those ingredients, right? All those different things as kind of like making a sauce, right? If we don't know what we're putting to a sauce, what quantities, what qualities of the sauce, we really don't know what the desired taste is going to be like when we give it to our clients. I went to a restaurant last night. I'm pretty sure the chef knew exactly how the taste of that chimichanga, well, I didn't have that, but I just made it up, was going to be when I was going to bite into it, right? Whether he or she knew that was up to their spot. So we don't want to program for guessing or for hoping for results. Instead, we want to plan and expect results. So that all happens within the programming sense. Now, how do we incorporate restoration into our programming? How do we incorporate, therefore, sustainability into our programs? There's 3 different things I want to talk about. Now, I'm literally going to show you what we do. Literally. So this is where, if you're watching this and you miss it all, go back to the recording, because it's a big deal. How do we incorporate restoration into our warm-up and cool-down? How do we incorporate restoration into literally in a unique program that we actually do? It's a full program. And then what tools do we use to talk about and use for incorporating sustainability restoration into our programming? And they're literally behind me, and I'll be talking about them. So let's dive into the warm-up first. Warm-up and cool-down. Think about the warm-up as cooking, right? Think about cooking. So in the warm-up, you lay down your food, see if it's fresh or not, pick out some of the lettuce that's not good for your salad. You do a little chopping, a little prep work, a little seasoning, throw some stuff on there. You're not cooking yet, right? You're just kind of getting the thing going. So that's kind of how we think about warming up. The cool down and the stretch is kind of the same thing. We kind of think about like, oh, I made the meal, I've eaten it, it was delicious, but I got to clean up a little bit. I got to wipe down the countertop, I got to scrub the dishes, I got to make sure the cast iron gets re-seasoned. We don't want to leave a mess in the kitchen, because if we leave a mess, it inhibits our next workout. It inhibits our next prep for cooking our next meal. So if you don't cool down, significant amount of cool down, you're just messing your kitchen. How long before you just run out of knives? You run out of clean pots. Or you finally say, I just can't cook anymore because my knee hurts too much. So what we want to do is focus on making sure we do both. So here's an example of our strength warm-up. I'm going to literally go through the entire thing. Not at its full length, because we'll be here for 10 extra minutes. But we take our movement assessment. No joke. This is our warm-up. This is how we start it. We go through lunge and reaching. We go through mobility. We do 5 each. Then we go posterior lunging. Now we get the posterior chain to get through some mobility. 5 each. Then we go through right lateral, left lateral chain mobility through a lunge, 5 each. Then we go through opposite side lateral motions, 5 each. I'm going fast. We don't go this fast. Then we go same side rotational, 5 each. You can see the diagonal chain that's being created as I go through it. Then we go through opposite side rotational, and then we're creating a spiral pattern through our entire body. Back through. We do 5 each. From there, we think, hey, it's a strength day. What more do we need? Well, we're going to need some range of motion to complete lifts, presses, reaches. So we do a big lunge. We reach forward. We pull that posterior chain open. We reach backwards and hold that position. We hold that spot. We reach to the side. Reach to the side. Typically, we're holding a medicine ball, a weight, a viper, something that has a little bit more load to it. So we have to control that load across multiple spectrums of movement. In fact, let me just grab onto it just to have a little bit more fun with it. Spinning and spinning. Then we go through the same rotational pattern. Why do we go through these patterns? Because it pulls our body into forward and backwards, side to side, and rotational movements that get us ready for the full compass, the full spectrum of what our workout's going to be showing us. And then from there, we'll go into a 6 different squat sequence holding a weight. I just have a slight weight here, a little bit of squat. We want to get all the flexion, extension through front and back stride stance, wide and narrow. Got my adductors, my lateral hip, my external rotators, my internal rotators. Just really covered the lower body. My reaches covered the upper body. Then we go to get the whole core. The way that we look at core is the same way that a doctor looks at you. We look at the whole body, nose to toes. So we'll get a tight initial range of motion. Then we'll get a little bit bigger. See how my knees start to move. Then we get the whole foot in there, long arms. We get a full pivot. Then we go through a little diagonal patterns. Keep it short and sweet. Then we take it bigger. Then we go super big and pivot all the way through. You see how all of our core is upright stance. We don't do core supine because we don't do core in real life supine that often. Then we go the opposite way. In fact, we only do it about once per day, and that's called getting out of bed. Boom, boom. If you work with kids, you're all on the ground a lot, well, then maybe we should change or modify it for you. And we do. Then we go through a flexion extension. Then we go super big, down and up, down and up. Now that's just a strength warm-up. The weight that the athlete uses is dependent on that athlete's capability. And you'll see a bunch of different weights used through in the entire strength warm-up. We'll do that before every strength workout. Okay, so we did a lot of prep there. I went fast. We'd go a lot slower than that. So I seasoned the meat. I made sure that everything was lined up. I feel ready to move forward. I feel ready to move backwards. I got low. I got tall. I spun this way. I spun that way. I leaned this way. I leaned that way. I'm ready to move. So that's how we think about a warm-up. How do we think about a cool down, right? Remember, we've got to clean up our mess. A workout is a very kind of high intensity zone in a sense. There's a lot of things happening. So in a cool down, we grab this stretch cage. We have 17 of these suckers, and we grab a mob stick if we don't have enough of them. Mob stick is a lot cheaper than that sucker there. And we think about it. How did we move? Well, if we did, and we go to the patterns of the workout, because we can only fit in so much, right? The cool downs are usually a little shorter because people want to get out of there. They want to rush out. I get it. So we try to go a little faster. We focus on just what the patterns were of that workout, or a few sore patterns that was yesterday. If we want to get anterior hip with a little bit of core, maybe we have a lot of medicine ball throws in. We'll set ourselves up into a deep stance. Hold on. We always want to have some sort of stability. We'll drive the pelvis forward. Side, side, spin, spin. We can focus on the back leg getting super straight to get that long, long line. We can go through adductor motions. Honestly, there's unlimited amount of stretches I could show you, but I'm just showing you, in fact, just a few that we typically do. We can go overhead, pin down, big slide, hips come forward and back, looking up and back, spin through the core, get all the different angles that we can have. We can get our hamstrings by reaching back, sliding our hips side to side. Let me switch it so you can see it better. Side to side. I can spin through it. This motion through my upper body massively changes my hamstring stretch. Massively. It's all upper body driven. I can change my toe position to get that going. I can take the stick, place it behind the back, get some good extension through it, hold, and then get a nice little kind of underhand paddle just to get my thoracic spine to unwind and get all the quote unquote juices flowing through my thoracic spine. I can get my bicep going. See, I did a lot of curls. Post, my thumb is down. I can drive my body forward, side to side. I can get my chest opened up, plant that forward, foot in front, hand back, drive my leg this way, but draw my body that way. Boom, good chest stretch, even into my front deltoid, even into my bicep, all the way through, even feeding into my serratus anterior, all the way through. It's endless. And all of that was just with the little stick. And everything was upright, everything was dynamic, everything was with my own gravitational force in relative understanding of how I used it in the workout. Can you do those things sitting down, laying down? Absolutely. So just really think about how do you clean up the mess that you made. Not saying it's a bad thing as a mess, but clean up the kitchen and ready for the next workout. Okay, so that's kind of a sense of a warm-up and cool down. What about our program that we actually use? We actually use an actual program that we built, and it's called Melt, Mold, Move. We go into significant deep dive in our MDMC program. We teach you every little bit of this program, not so that you need to use it, but you understand the basics of it. So the tools that you need to do a Melt, Mold, Move is a foam roller, foam ball, whatever the case is, and a mope stick. We use these cages too, but we break down and we think about our restoration in 3 phases. Think about yoga. What do you typically do in yoga? You stretch
Straight lines.
and you strengthen.
Yeah.
And what do you think about how you do like just foam rolling? What does that do? That foam rolling just really just does soft tissue work. Okay. So soft tissue work by itself is very transitory, right? It's fleeting. It doesn't stick. It doesn't stay. Why? Well, because you didn't train your muscles to utilize its new positioning. Because the way that you trained it was typically laying down or seated against a wall or whatever the case is. You're not moving necessarily while you're doing it. So another way to think about it is, why do we stretch? Well, we stretch because we want to reshape tissue, right? We want to reshape how we're actually moving the body. And when we reshape how we move the body, that it's like a clay potter moving clay as it's spinning around, right? We want to reshape it through. Then why do we strengthen? We want to create neuromuscular connectivity so we can control a motion through different ranges of motion. So if we take those 3 things together, soft tissue work, the stretching work, and the strengthening work, we get this essentially this kind of foolproof system. We unlock the system, we move it and shape it in the way that we want it, and then we put it in the oven and we cure it. We keep it there. We allow it to stay there. Melt, mold, move. In a 45-minute session, we will take 20 minutes to get everyone on the floor and start foam rolling select pieces of our body. We ask, how's everyone feeling today? What are the cases? But we do have our intent. And for the foam rolling, what we do not do in foam rolling for the sake of unlocking soft tissue is we do not roll. Sounds pretty interesting, right? We do not roll on a foam roller. We do this post-workout. Sometimes we'll just do some foam rolling to kind of loosen up some tissue to flush the system back and forth in. But on foam rolling, we do not roll. We find tender tissue. Tender tissue means it's stuck, dehydrated, in need of help. And we sit there and we hold. We wait. We wait until the soft tissue has rehydrated itself or neuromuscularly released and allowed the force, remember, the force to reshape it, to push the fascial tissue into a new paradigm, into a new structure, into a new, essentially, softer way of moving. Why do we hold? Because typically when this is uncomfortable, and you push somewhere else, ooh, you feel it again. Ooh, you feel it again. What if you keep getting slapped in the face? Obviously, you're going to start tensing pretty quickly. So if you only have to do it once, you can start to kind of ease into it. And we wait for that soft tissue to open up. In fact, we only push to about a 6 out of 10. 10 is real bad. 1 is, or 0 is like, I just feel pressure. And we wait for that 6 to turn into a 2. Literally, just by waiting. And usually it takes no more than 90 seconds. And we cycle through that. and allows us to get a very good concentrated effect of tissue being opening in that one spot. Do you need to do the entire leg? No, that's going to take days, right? Just the same way, do you go out sunbathing and expect to get a tan in one day? What if you tried? I've tried. Nothing good came out of it. I got a sunburn. My body couldn't accept all those beautiful rays, right? It couldn't accept it. It was too much. So the truth about how the body grows itself is the same truth as how the body restores itself, right? We can't just try to shove it all in as fast as possible. So I just did an inside thigh stretch or roll. So from there, I want to go for it and maybe do an inside thigh stretch. I just released it. I should probably start to stretch it, but not just, remember, not just in a one-dimensional stretch, but in a two-dimensional stretch, and then in a three-dimensional stretch. So the 1D for this adductor, which lives in the frontal plane primarily, would be here. A 2D, let me change my position, would be an anterior and posterior pelvic drive. And then a 3D would be taking my pelvis and rotating it. Now, rotating it this way is going to shorten it. So rotating it that way or away from it would lengthen it. So I just did a maximum stretch. Frontal plane, I can choose forward and back, doesn't matter. I'll choose forward. Now maximum anterior, still not joint uncomfortableness, but still stretching out inside thigh. And then there's my transverse plane. I have now taken that tissue in 3 planes of motion and lengthened it, not to its maximum, but to a very good extent. Honestly, just by me standing here and showing you that, me doing a little side shift, it's way easier for me to go this way than it is that way, just by standing here and showing you that one simple move for a few seconds. Okay, now it has all this freedom. Awesome. How do I keep it there? Because my movement patterns need to continue to reinforce what's happening. Just because you get new hardware doesn't mean the software can control it, right? Hardware and software need to come together. We literally have our own software. Literally, it's called our neuromuscular system. It's our proprioception, right? So for me to strengthen this sucker, I'll maybe put a toe out here, drive my body weight, maybe reach the top so I get a lot of stress, deceleration stress through the adductor and bring it home. Adductor, bring it home. Adductor, bring it home. What am I training my adductor to do? Prevent massive valgusing. I'm asking it to slow it down to prevent it. So I'm actually strengthening a knee injury prevention move by allowing my body to go there, to slow it down, and then accelerate it back home into a good, safe position. Boom. Where do I feel this stress? I feel it here. I feel it here. Am I training it to do a better job now? I've unlocked it, stretched it, and strengthening it? No questions asked. Are there better ways to do it? Of course. But is that a simple way with 2 pieces of equipment that you can do literally in a team of 20 people if you wanted to, or 4 people? Absolutely. So I just told you a program that we run several days or several times per day that has nothing to do with strength, nothing to do with cardio. It is pure restoration. It allows our clients to come one more session, allows them to walk out feeling like $1,000,000. They didn't do yoga, no incense, no music. Not saying that's bad. I'm just saying, right? It's not everyone's cup of tea. And I not only took the tissue through all of its ranges of soft tissue, mobility, and then stability. Yoga doesn't do that. That's nothing wrong with yoga. Pilates doesn't do that. Bikram doesn't do that. There's not a restoration program known to me that is in the broader sense of what the masses do that can do that. If you have one, I would love to know it. I would love to know it. And there's one that we do right there. Do we invent this? No, we didn't invent this. We just took the different pieces together and put them into a program. So that's what we want for you, to be a specialist of specialties, to take the knowledge that's already out there and say, wait a minute, there's a lot of truth to this stuff. There's a lot of kind of cool kind of understandings that we can do in our own knowledge. And that's where we want to teach you to kind of unpack it and to not be stuck in your own dogmatic or another dogmatic way of thinking, because there's so much more knowledge out there. So we do this in the MDMC course. It's a big deal. We have module after module that talk about how to take all these components and make your programming. There's no bulletproof program. There's no perfect programming, right? Because I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Our clients are not perfect. The environment is not perfect, but it makes it that much better. If you want to jump into the MDMC program, great. We start on October 4th, our next class. If you want to talk more about it and really dive in and see how it makes sense for you, if it makes sense for you, would you mind leaving your email in the chat? You can direct comment to me if you want. If you don't want other people to see it, I'll set up an email with you. I'll get a call with you. We'll talk about why it would or maybe would not make sense for you, and how you can take all these different trainings that I'm talking about and unpack them in a way and speak to them just the same way that I'm speaking about them. You can talk for days and days about it because it's just you have this knowledge base that never makes you feel stuck or in a corner or have the lack of confidence to say, I don't know if I could train you. I don't know what to do when the lower back hurts. I don't know what to do when they say that they want to train for a particular sport. You won't get stuck. You don't get stuck because you know how to think versus what to think. October 4th is when it's kicking off. We will have more of them. But that's our next class. Again, send me an email or your email, and I'll reach out to you to have a one-on-one talk with you to see, okay, wait, tell me more about this spot. In the meantime, in the Movement Collective Discord group, I got some homework ideas for you, okay? Post 3 ways that you can turn a squat, a lunge, and a reach into a restorative exercise. I kind of gave you some hints and even a few answers in this presentation. How do you take a squat, a lunge, and a reach, whatever the case is, and turn it into a restorative exercise that you could literally take that exact exercise, put it into a workout of performance, and have one drill that kind of unwinds them, or the other 5 performances that makes them kind of sharper. And then what I want you to do as an idea is analyze some old programming, some old workouts, and see how well balanced it is. And then how can they make it more balanced using the 12 different things that I talked about? Are they all prone? Were they all supine? Were they all at knee reach? Were they all just at chest height? Were they all funnel plane? You didn't even have them spin once. So think about those different ways, and feel free to post about it, and even post the actual workout on there. And then we can maybe analyze it together. I love it. I love doing that because it's a real life example, and you get to walk away with literally a thought process that maybe you haven't had before. And I'm going to learn a few things about some cool moves that you've put out there. All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you all kind of taking the time to dive into this one. Next week is going to be kind of even more of a mind explode because we're going to talk about tweaking. Tweaking doesn't mean becoming a tweaker, but it means about taking an exercise and how to think about the ways to modify it so you can actually tweak and modify drills for anything that comes in front of you. No joke. Without actually changing the exercise that you gave them. The action is the way that we say it. Here's an example. Forward lunge. They're doing a lunge. Maybe they have a medicine ball. They're doing a little swing with it, and they say, ooh, that hurts my knee. We're not going to change the lunge, but we're going to show you how to take away the knee pain. Not messing with you. Not messing at all. I'm going to show you the different ways to think about what a lunge really is and how to say, I think I can keep you doing lunges and still remove that knee pain. Did you fix the knee pain? No, you did not fix the knee pain. But did you work around it for that session, that spot for that athlete to feel confident, comfortable, and capable to get through your session without saying, gosh, man, I always have freaking knee pain in their workout? The answer is yes, you can do those things. I'm really excited about it. So any questions, please feel free to unmute, throw them in the chat, and we'll get to them. Other than that, you guys are awesome. Thanks for making time in your day to hang out with me. I appreciate it greatly. Cheers.